They can solve complex problems, but they can't solve their own hearts. They can stay calm in chaos, yet fall apart in silence. The smarter the mind, the heavier the emotions can become. Many intelligent people live with a hidden contradiction. The brain is sharp, fast, and analytical, yet their emotional world feels overwhelming, tangled, or completely out of control. They carry the weight of overthinking, the pressure of perfection, and the sting of self-criticism far more intensely than they ever admit. And while the world sees their logic, confidence, and capability, they alone know how quickly their inner world can collapse when fear, shame, or uncertainty rise up. The Stoics understood this long before psychology did. The mind that isn't trained emotionally will eventually break under its own brilliance. In this video, we're going to uncover 7 brutal reasons why smart people fail emotionally, and how understanding them can finally help you reclaim clarity, strength, and peace within yourself. If this message already resonates, stay with me. This might be the beginning of real inner mastery for you. 1. Overthinking becomes emotional self-sabotage. Smart people rarely realize that their greatest strength, analysis, can also become their greatest emotional trap. When something hurts, instead of allowing themselves to feel it, they dissect it. They examine every angle, every possibility, every motive, every outcome, believing that enough thinking will eventually solve the pain. But emotions are not puzzles to be solved. They are signals to be acknowledged. And the moment a feeling is treated like a math problem, it stops being processed and instead becomes suppressed under the weight of endless mental loops. Overthinking becomes emotional avoidance, wearing a mask of intelligence. Rather than facing sadness, they analyze the timeline. Rather than feeling fear, they project outcomes. Rather than admitting disappointment, they build theories around why it shouldn't matter. The mind does the work, but the heart remains untouched. Over time, this creates emotional stagnation, feelings that were never felt, conversations that were never spoken, wounds that were never healed. What looks like logic is often a shield built to avoid the discomfort of vulnerability. The Stoics understood this paradox well. They never taught people to think more. They taught people to think correctly. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." He didn't say the number of thoughts, but the quality of them. A mind that spirals becomes stained with confusion. A mind that observes with clarity becomes anchored, steady, unshakable. Stoicism is not about suppressing feelings. It is about refusing to let distorted thinking control them. In real life, this shows up everywhere. A relationship conflict turns into a 4-hour internal debate instead of a straightforward conversation. A career decision becomes an exhausting list of pros and cons, every scenario imagined, yet no action taken. Fear of failure becomes a mental simulation that grows darker with every cycle, convincing the person that taking no risk is safer than moving forward. Overthinking convinces them that they are being careful, when in reality, they are being controlled by unprocessed emotion. The emotional cost is heavy. Overthinkers often feel exhausted from battles that happened only in their heads. They feel detached from people they care about because they're analyzing instead of connecting. They feel stuck in life because they confuse mental movement with real progress. And eventually, the emotional backlog becomes overwhelming, leading to breakdowns that seem sudden but were quietly building for years. The antidote is not to stop thinking, but to interrupt the cycle with conscious clarity. A simple Stoic-inspired practice can change everything. Think, feel, act with clarity. First, think. Ask yourself, is this thought helping me or trapping me? Second, feel. Allow the emotion beneath the thought to surface without judgment. Finally, act with clarity. Choose a response aligned with truth, not fear. This 3-step shift rewires the pattern. It brings the heart back into the equation. It disrupts the endless loops. And over time, it teaches the mind that emotional strength is not found in analyzing feelings, but in facing them directly. 2. Intelligence creates a false sense of control. One of the most painful emotional traps for intelligent people is the illusion that they can control more than they actually can. Their sharp minds are used to solving problems, predicting patterns, and optimizing outcomes. So they begin to believe that life should function the same way a well-designed system does. Input, process, output. But human emotions, relationships, and unpredictable circumstances don't obey logic. And when a smart person tries to force them into logical boxes, the result is frustration, anxiety, and eventually emotional collapse. Intelligence often convinces people that if they think hard enough, they can prevent loss, prevent rejection, prevent misunderstanding, and prevent chaos. They believe they can anticipate every reaction, eliminate every risk, and fix emotional situations just by understanding them deeply enough. But emotional control is not the same as intellectual mastery. You cannot logic someone into loving you. You cannot strategize someone out of disappointing you. You cannot analyze your way into permanent safety. When the reality breaks through, that people still act unpredictably, that outcomes still slip through their fingers, it creates a harsh internal crash. Panic rises. Shame follows. A sense of personal failure begins to bloom. If I'm so smart, why couldn't I control this? This is why intelligent people often suffer silently. They don't just feel the pain of what happened. They feel the humiliation of not being able to prevent it. Relationship anxiety becomes heightened because they are constantly scanning for signs, patterns, or signals they missed. Workplace pressure becomes unbearable because they assume that better planning should eliminate uncertainty. The emotional world becomes a battlefield they never learned to navigate, filled with variables their mind can't dominate. The Stoics understood this dilemma with extraordinary clarity. Epictetus taught the foundation of emotional freedom through the dichotomy of control. Focus only on what is truly yours, your actions, your choices, your values, and release everything else. He said, "Some things are up to us, and some are not." Those 8 words hold the power to free any overburdened mind. What is not yours will never bend entirely to your will. What is yours cannot be taken from you unless you surrender it. Imagine applying this to real situations. A partner becomes distant. You cannot control their feelings, but you can control the honesty and integrity of your communication. A project at work becomes unstable. You cannot control market shifts or office politics, but you can control your effort, your attitude, and your professionalism. A friend pulls away. You cannot control their choices, but you can control the boundaries you set and the grace you offer. Emotional strength comes from responding with clarity, not clinging with desperation. To break the illusion of control, practice a simple 2-minute daily exercise. The control map. Draw 2 columns. On the left, things I control. On the right, things I don't. List everything weighing on your mind. Then release the right side completely and commit to acting only from the left. This small ritual trains the mind to stop grasping at what was never its responsibility. It restores emotional balance, reduces anxiety, and teaches the truth that Stoics lived by. Real power is not controlling everything. It is controlling yourself. 3. Emotional avoidance disguised as rationality. One of the most subtle emotional traps for intelligent people is the belief that rational thinking protects them from pain. Logic becomes armor. Analysis becomes a shield. Productivity becomes a hiding place. On the surface, it looks responsible, disciplined, even admirable. But beneath the polished structure of intellect lies something far more fragile, a heart that has learned to avoid discomfort by burying itself under layers of reasoning. Instead of allowing themselves to feel sadness, anger, grief or fear, they drown these emotions in work, theories, explanations, and mental frameworks. They tell themselves they're processing, when in reality, they're avoiding. This avoidance is often unintentional. Smart people are good at coping in ways that look healthy from the outside. Their bosses praise them for being composed under pressure. Their friends admire their ability to stay logical. Their families rely on them to stay calm when everyone else is falling apart. But what most people never see is the slow emotional buildup happening beneath that calm exterior. What was never expressed now sits inside them like static. Chronic tension, exhaustion, irritability, numbness, or sudden emotional overload. They are brilliant at managing thoughts, yet disconnected from their own emotional truth. Stoic philosophy doesn't encourage suppressing emotion. Instead, it demands facing reality with honesty, even when the truth is uncomfortable. Seneca wrote, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage." He wasn't talking about heroic battles or grand achievements. He was talking about the courage required to sit with your own internal world, to confront what hurts, to acknowledge what you wish weren't true. True strength in Stoicism does not come from avoiding emotional pain. It comes from understanding it, naming it, and not allowing it to control you from the shadows. You can see this pattern clearly in moments of heartbreak or loss. After a breakup, an intelligent person may dive into self-analysis instead of grief. What were the dynamics? What were the compatibility issues? What psychological patterns were at play? Yet the heart does not heal through diagnosis. It heals through permission to feel. Family wounds are often rationalized away. They did their best. It wasn't that bad. Or, I'm being dramatic. Shame from childhood gets intellectualized into theories of identity and behavior, rather than addressed with compassion. Each explanation adds distance between themselves and the emotion that needs attention. This emotional avoidance becomes a long-term liability. Unfelt emotions don't disappear. They resurface in unexpected ways. Burnout, anxiety spikes, emotional numbness, low self-worth, or difficulty forming deep relationships. Rationality without emotional honesty becomes self-sabotage disguised as competence. A simple but powerful practice can break this cycle. 5-minute truth journaling. Set a timer. Write without filtering. Do not explain your feelings. Describe them. Do not justify them. Allow them. Ask yourself, what am I really feeling beneath the thoughts? What truth am I avoiding? What hurt have I rationalized instead of acknowledged? In those 5 minutes, the armor cracks just enough for honesty to enter. Over time, this builds emotional strength far more enduring than any intellectual shield. It teaches the mind that facing the truth isn't a threat. It's liberation. For perfectionism makes emotions feel like failure. For many intelligent people, perfectionism isn't a preference, it's a survival strategy. Their identity is often built on being competent, composed, and in control. So when emotions show up in ways that feel messy, unpredictable, or inconvenient, they interpret them as signs of personal failure. Sadness feels like weakness. Anxiety feels like malfunction. Anger feels like a moral flaw. Instead of seeing emotions as part of being human, they treat them like a software bug that needs debugging. The smarter they are, the harsher they become toward themselves, because they believe they should know better, should handle it, or shouldn't feel this way. This creates a painful cycle. The fear of making mistakes becomes the fear of feeling anything that might lead to mistakes. The fear of embarrassment becomes a fear of vulnerability in any form, and the pressure to always be the reliable one means they never allow themselves to crumble, even when they desperately need rest, comfort, or support. On the outside, they look strong. On the inside, they're carrying an emotional rigidity that becomes heavier every year. The mind demands perfection. The heart suffocates under it. Stoic philosophy offers a radically different view. Stoicism never asked people to suppress emotions. It asked them to interpret emotions with clarity rather than shame. A feeling is not a defect, it's data. It tells you where your boundaries are, what matters to you, what wounds you carry, what values you protect. To reject emotion is to reject information essential for self-understanding. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it's endurable, then endure it." He wasn't glorifying suffering. He was reminding us that discomfort, including emotional discomfort, is survivable. It is not a personal flaw. It is part of the human experience. Consider how this plays out in real situations. A smart person fears embarrassment before a presentation, and instead of acknowledging anxiety, they rehearse endlessly, over-prepare, or criticize themselves for being nervous. A high achiever who is always the dependable one avoids asking for help because needing support feels like failure. In relationships, they might hide their insecurities, believing vulnerability would make them less admirable or less worthy. Yet every attempt to maintain the illusion of perfection pushes them further away from authentic connection and internal peace. The tragedy is that perfectionism promises emotional safety but delivers emotional fragility. When perfection is the only acceptable state, any deviation, any fear, any doubt, any moment of sadness feels catastrophic. But the truth is this: emotional resilience grows not from doing everything perfectly, but from learning to act despite imperfection. That's where the imperfect action principle becomes transformative. Instead of waiting until you feel flawless, prepared, or emotionally balanced, you take one small step forward anyway. You speak up even if your voice shakes. You ask for help even if it feels uncomfortable. You try the new thing even if you fear failing. Imperfect action retrains the mind to see emotion not as an obstacle, but as a companion on the path of growth. Every imperfect step builds confidence. Every moment of vulnerability builds strength. And every time you choose action over self-judgment, you loosen perfectionism's grip on your emotional life. In the end, the goal isn't to eliminate emotional discomfort, it's to stop interpreting it as evidence that you're broken. It's simply part of being alive, learning, becoming. 5. They carry too much alone. Hyper-independence. Another brutal emotional trap for intelligent people is hyper-independence, the belief that they must carry everything alone. From a young age, they were praised for being capable, mature, or wise beyond their years. Over time, this praise quietly turned into pressure. They learned that their value comes from solving problems, not sharing them. They learned that asking for help makes them look weak or unprepared. They learned that vulnerability is risky, inefficient, or unproductive. So they built a life in which they are always the strong one, the stable one, the one others rely on. But when you become the person everyone depends on, you often forget what it feels like to depend on someone else. Hyper-independence feels like strength at first, but emotionally, it becomes a slow suffocation. Because even the strongest minds have limits, and when those limits are reached, the collapse is quiet and devastating. Emotional failure doesn't happen when something too big comes along. It happens when the accumulation of unspoken worries, unshared burdens, and unexpressed pain finally exceeds what one person can carry alone. Intelligent people are often unaware of how overloaded they are because they normalize their own exhaustion. They convince themselves they can handle just a little more until the weight becomes unbearable and they don't know who to turn to because they've spent years acting like they never needed anyone. The Stoics, despite their reputation for inner strength, never promoted isolation. They believed deeply in the value of connection, community, and wise companionship. Seneca wrote profoundly about friendship. saying that one of life's greatest gifts is having someone with whom you can be fully honest. Stoicism teaches that virtue is cultivated in relationship, not in solitude, that wisdom grows through dialogue, not through silent suffering, and that courage is not only facing the world alone, but also allowing others to walk beside you. The lone warrior might look impressive, but the supported warrior endures longer. You can see the consequences of hyper-independence in real life everywhere. A high-performing employee quietly burns out because they never ask for lighter workload or support. A friend who is always fine privately experiences deep loneliness because no one realizes how much they're hurting. A leader carries the emotional weight of an entire team, pretending to be composed while anxiety eats at them every night. Intelligent people often hide their deepest struggles behind competence, and the world rarely notices until they hit a breaking point. But emotional strength is not built by carrying everything alone. It's built by knowing what to carry and what to share. And breaking the cycle of hyper-independence starts with one simple practice: one honest conversation per week. Choose one person you trust. Share one thing you're truly feeling. It doesn't have to be dramatic or heavy. It just has to be real. This ritual teaches the mind that connection is not a threat, that vulnerability is not incompetence, and that being understood does not weaken you. It stabilizes you. Over time, this habit rewires the emotional system. It lightens the internal load, restores a sense of belonging, and strengthens the capacity to endure life's challenges without collapsing in silence. The truth is, no matter how smart or capable you are never meant to carry everything alone. Stoicism reminds us that self-reliance is powerful, but shared strength is unbreakable. 6. Intelligence magnifies pain through self-judgment. One of the most painful patterns among intelligent people is the way they turn their minds against themselves. They don't just experience hurt. They analyze it, amplify it, and weaponize it. When something goes wrong, they immediately ask, "Why did I let this happen?" Or, "I should have known better." Their intelligence becomes a mirror that reflects every flaw in high resolution. They punish themselves more harshly than anyone else ever could, convinced that their standards must be higher, their mistakes must be fewer, and their emotional reactions must always be reasonable. This combination, deep shame and sky-high expectations, creates a perfect storm for emotional collapse. Smart people often believe that awareness should prevent suffering, so when suffering still comes, they interpret it as personal failure. They assume they should have predicted the problem, avoided the mistake, or controlled their emotions better. Instead of giving themselves compassion, they give themselves courtroom-level interrogation. Instead of healing, they spiral. And instead of acknowledging their humanity, they measure themselves against impossible internal rules. Stoicism offers a powerful corrective to this destructive mindset. The Stoics believed in self-examination, but never in self-destruction. Epictetus taught that discipline must be paired with gentleness toward others and especially toward oneself. He reminded his students that progress requires patience and that moral growth happens through correction, not condemnation. Stoicism does not demand perfection. It demands honesty, effort, and resilience. A person who never shows themselves mercy ends up becoming their own tyrant, not their own teacher. You can see this dynamic clearly in everyday life. Someone makes a mistake at work and spends hours replaying it mentally, convinced it proves they're incompetent. Someone misreads a situation in a relationship and decides they're unworthy of love. Someone feels anxiety and immediately concludes that they're weak. The emotional wound is real, but the self-judgment multiplies the pain until it becomes unbearable. To break this cycle, practice the compassionate objectivity method. Step 1. Name the emotion without shame. I'm overwhelmed. I'm scared. I'm disappointed. Step 2. View the situation as if it happened to someone you care about. What would you tell them? Step 3. Respond to yourself with the same fairness and steadiness you would offer a friend. Over time, this method retrains the mind to evaluate without attacking, to correct without crushing, and to grow without breaking. Emotional strength isn't born from flawless performance. It's born from learning to stand back up without tearing yourself apart first. 7. They don't train. Emotional discipline like a skill. For all their intelligence, many smart people make one crucial mistake. They train their minds, but never train their emotions. They study, analyze, strategize, and optimize. But when it comes to emotional discipline, they rely entirely on instinct. And instinct, especially under stress, is unreliable. The result is an internal imbalance. Razor-sharp intellect paired with fragile emotional resilience. They can debate complex ideas, yet crumble under anger. They can solve high-level problems, yet spiral with disappointment. They can lead others, yet doubt themselves endlessly in private. Stoicism treats emotional discipline not as something you either naturally have or don't have, but as a trainable skill, one built through pauses, perspective, and principles. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." But that power doesn't appear by accident. It appears through practice. Without training, the mind reacts. With training, it responds. In real life, the lack of emotional training shows up everywhere. Anger flares at the smallest inconvenience, not because the person is unstable, but because they've never trained the micro-pause that keeps impulse from becoming action. Disappointment hits like a wave, not because life is unusually unfair, but because they've never learned to widen their perspective before drawing conclusions. Self-doubt becomes a constant companion, not because they're inadequate, but because they've never practiced separating facts from fear. This is where the Stoic Pause ritual becomes transformative, a 6-step method designed to interrupt emotional reactivity and replace it with clarity. Stop. Freeze the reaction before it takes over. Breathe. Slow, deep breaths to regulate the nervous system. Name. Identify the emotion without judgment. Reframe. Ask, is this within my control or not? Choose. Select a response aligned with your values, not your impulse. Act. Take the smallest wise action available. Practice daily. This ritual strengthens emotional stability the same way repetition strengthens muscle. Emotional discipline becomes less about suppressing feelings and more about guiding them with intention. And over time, the smart mind becomes not just intelligent, but powerful. Because it finally learns to work with the heart instead of against it. You've just walked through 7 brutal but liberating truths about why smart people often struggle emotionally. Overthinking, the illusion of control, rationalized avoidance, perfectionism, hyper-independence, harsh self-judgment, and the lack of emotional training. If any of these patterns felt familiar, that's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of awareness, the first doorway to real inner strength. What matters now is what you choose to do with that awareness. Pick just one practice from this video: truth journaling, the control map, the imperfect action principle, or the Stoic Pause ritual, and apply it today. Even one small shift can begin to reshape the way your mind and emotions work together. Thank you for spending your time here, for your willingness to look inward, and for the courage it takes to grow. I appreciate every minute you share on this journey, and I hope you'll join me in the next video as we continue building the discipline, clarity, and resilience that Stoic philosophy was made for. Until then, keep training your mind and strengthening your heart.